Hey everyone, it's Sarah, and I'm back to fill my reading journal for the month of May. So starting off, I read 7 books this month, 2,381 pages with an average rating of 4.07. And my favorite book this month was Dungeon Crawler Carl. Then looking at my calendar, I, had a lot that I was reading near the end of the month, trying to finish things up. I started a lot of things that I will finish in June as well. I pulled a quote from the Thursday Murder Club. You always know when it's your first time, don't you? But you rarely know when it's your final time. Then mostly audiobook reading. I think everything I finished this month was an audiobook. And I completed most of my tasks. I'm still struggling to track my pages in Storygraph, which I'm getting better, but I'm still not, 100% at tracking yet. Then I started and finished, most of the things that I was working on, but I am in the middle of reading Dead Tired, If It Makes You Happy, and Carl's Doomsday Scenario, which you'll see in my June reading journal. I did not read my May book of the month, which was Our Perfect Storm, so I do need to start reading some of these books that I've accumulated from book of the month this year. And then I did complete some bingos. I usually pull challenges from the back of my reading journal to put into this bingo board just to focus on some different prompts or, theme challenge ideas to, direct my reading. And I did finish my top 3 TBR books: Dungeon Crawler Carl, The Marlowe Murder Club, and The Thursday Murder Club. Then looking at my format tracker, I, basically just read audiobooks this month. I don't think I finished anything else except for audiobooks. Then for my monthly review, I read 7 books, 2,381 pages. I almost have this complete. This is my bookshelf from JoJo's Pretty Paper Shop, and there's more pages to it, but the front page at least is almost complete. And I'm at 35 books, and this is my tracker from Plan with Elise. Then going back here, I have Dead Wake as my first book that I read this month. I really enjoyed reading about the Lusitania. It's a ship that sank during World War I, and I thought I knew more about the sinking than I really did. I think I was getting it confused with a different ship that sank during World War II, but this ship was sunk by a German U-boat or submarine, and it was a British passenger ship, kind of a luxury cruise liner, think the Titanic, that sank, and it had a lot of American passengers on it. And so, America was not fighting in World War I at this point, and so, it was one of the things that kind of helped the United States become involved, become, not neutral in World War I. But this is a book by Eric Larson, and I've read something else by him before. I read The Devil in the White City, and he has a good way of writing. I really enjoy his writing. He has a good way of, taking a lot of different elements of the story, people involved in the story, to, puzzle it together into the story that's told from a number of different angles. So you have, the perspective of the German U-boats, you have the perspective of Woodrow Wilson, you have the perspective of a lot of different passengers on the ship, and it's told through various letters, journal entries, newspaper clippings, etc. So really well done, I really learned a lot, so I gave it 5 stars. Next, I have The Handsome Man's Deluxe Cafe. This is the next book in the Number One Ladies Detective Agency, which is kind of a cozy mystery series that my husband and I have been slowly reading over the years. And in this book, the detectives are trying to solve the mystery of finding out this woman's identity. She doesn't know who she is. This brother and sister took her in and are trying to help her figure out who she is. And, Ma Ramatsue and Ma Makutsi are, tasked with figuring it out. Ma Makutsi also is deciding to, make her own restaurant. She's going to open up her own cafe. And so you have the process of her, finding a chef and staff and building this restaurant. And things don't go the way that she intends them to. Of course, they go astray. So overall, I gave this book 3 stars. I enjoyed the book, but it didn't stand out from other books in the series. They all feel quite similar. So I still enjoyed it, but it didn't stand out. So 3 stars felt fair. Next, I have The First Time I Saw Him, which is the sequel to The Last Thing He Told Me. I can't say too much about the plot just because it is a sequel, but it's been a number of years since I've read The Last Thing He Told Me, and it was really hard to recall details from that book. And I think I would have had a better reading experience if I would have read them closer together. This book just came out this year, so it's not like I could have read it, sooner, unless I would have read The Last Thing He Told Me until recently, or reread it recently. But there's just so many books, it's sometimes hard to go back and reread things, especially when they're not an all-time favorite. But yeah, it was fine. I gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed myself. There were some moments or scenarios that felt a bit over the top. There were some situations that the characters were in that it doesn't feel like real life. I don't know people that would be ready to figure out some of these scenarios. And so, it's a bit unbelievable at times, but I still had a good time reading it. And, we read it, in a weekend where we were traveling. So, got through it fairly quickly. Then I have The Marlowe Murder Club. This one was a fun book. This was one of my 26 and 26 books. So, one of the books I hope to finish reading in 2026. I made a TBR for myself for 2026. And in this mystery, you have Judith Potts. She's, your nosy older neighbor. And she lives in a really fancy house that she inherited from her great aunt, I believe. And it backs up to the river. And as she's doing her nightly swim, she notices something amiss at her neighbor's house and finds him dead. The police think it might have been a suicide. They don't think that it's murder. She's convinced it's murder. So she decides that she's going to investigate it herself since the police aren't doing it satisfactorily. And along, her investigations along the way, she involves other people in her scheming or in her little plots to figure out the killer, figure out the mystery. And so you have this unlikely group of individuals that come together to solve the mystery. I will say that the ending was a little predictable. I've read a lot of mysteries. I could see it coming, but I still really enjoyed myself. I still had a lot of fun, so I gave it 4 stars. Next, I read Dungeon Crawler Carl, and this was my favorite book for the month. I've heard a lot of people really say good things about Dungeon Crawler Carl, so I was excited to read it, but also wasn't really sure exactly what to expect, and it's a little hard to explain as well. But in this book, it starts off, Carl has just broken up with his girlfriend who is cheating on him, and he ends up outside of his apartment in the middle of the night chasing after his ex-girlfriend's cat, who, you know, escaped outside, and it's freezing cold, so he's trying to bring her back in the apartment. And while they're outside, all of the buildings, everything around them, you know, collapses down, is crushed down into, you know, nothing. And so anyone that was inside at this time is dead. And then anyone that's outside, like he and Princess Donut, are saved. But the catch is that the aliens that have taken over the planet to mine our resources are also putting on a game show for the rest of the universe. And, you know, in it, they're gonna watch Carl, Princess Donut, and other humans, you know, kind of fight for survival through these series of levels, each level getting progressively harder, you know, to kind of win their survival fight to the end. And so there's a lot of action, there's, you know, crude humor, there's, you know, elements of the video game, so an inventory and, you know, stat points, and there's a lot of different villains, and there's a lot of creative, you know, thinking that went into planning this whole world and the world building behind it. I told my husband I would like to play this as a video game. I think it would be fun, but, you know, it's definitely a very creative book. We had a lot of fun with it. We started book 2 already and are having a good time so far. Next, I had the Thursday Murder Club, and in this one, you have another set of older individuals solving a mystery, but this time these individuals live in a retirement village or a retirement home of sorts, and every Thursday they get together to talk about cold cases and try to solve old mysteries. But in the present day, now there's a you know, present day murder that has just happened, and they decide to turn their attention to solving that one instead. One of my complaints with this book is that there are a lot of characters. There's, I mean, easily a dozen different perspectives that the book takes you on, and some of the chapters are quite short, so if you're not paying attention, you know, you can kind of miss whose perspective you're at now, because there's not really a rhyme and reason to why you're, or, you know, who you're going to go to next. Some books, it's like every, you know, third chapter is the same person. Not this book. That being said, I still really enjoyed it. I loved all of the different mysteries that they went on, or, you know, because there's more than just the main mystery. There's the main mystery, there's a couple of side mysteries, there's a lot of side characters, and I really enjoyed the characters as well. So I gave it 5 stars. I look forward to continuing in the series. I also just watched the movie that Netflix put out, and having read the book, you know, right before watching the movie, I will say there's a lot that they changed in the movie that, you know, I would have liked them not to change. But that being said, I understand that you have to make some adjustments to, you know, fit it into a movie. And so maybe reading them back to back, or reading it and then watching the movie back to back, wasn't quite the best plan for it, but I still really enjoyed both. But I definitely think the book is better. Then I have Make Mine Magic, which is my last book for the month of May. And this was just an Audible exclusive audiobook, just a free audiobook. And I chose it because I had a buzzword reading challenge that had using the word make in the title. So make, making, maker, and I had a different book that I started for this, and then I knew I wasn't going to finish it in time, so I ended up pulling out this audiobook since it wasn't very long, and it was fine. 3 stars. You know, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't the best either. You have Claire the librarian, who has been jilted at the altar. She was supposed to get married and then go on their honeymoon to New York City, but she got left at the altar and decides that she's just going to take her honeymoon by herself anyways, because she's been looking forward to this trip. And in her exploration of the city, she ends up helping this elderly woman and then gets mixed up in kind of a power struggle for control of the New York City wizards. And I will just say, if I was on my honeymoon in New York, if it was my once in a lifetime trip, whether or not I was alone or with other people, I just can't imagine, you know, throwing my plans aside to just hang out with random people that I just met, because half of the book is just her going to lunch with this person, going to dinner with this person, going to a party with these people that she doesn't even know, instead of sightseeing and doing the itinerary that she picked out for herself on her honeymoon. So again, like, if this happened to me, you wouldn't find me in the same scenario at all. But putting that aside, it was still, like I said, enjoyable. The mystery or the magic system, the backstories of people was pretty surface level. There were some things that I felt were left unanswered or weren't answered satisfactorily, and some things that resolved a little bit differently than I would have hoped. But again, it was still enjoyable and easy, you know, kind of background read while I was cleaning and doing other things. So, you know, it was fine. And with that, that was everything I read for the month of May. So I look forward to seeing where June takes me. Yeah, I have some good reads already in progress for June, and I have some other things on my radar that I'm looking forward to reading as well. So I hope you enjoyed watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye now.